It was barely 6:30 in the morning when the quiet roads outside Hornsey erupted into chaos. A Volkswagen Polo, hurtling at more than 80 miles per hour, tore along the wrong side of the carriageway. Police were closing in. Blue lights reflected off of the wet tarmac, sirens warning anyone in its path. Up ahead, a white Ford Transit van appeared just around the bend. The van's driver swerved onto the verge, desperately trying to avoid the inevitable. But the Polo did not brake. It kept on coming straight for him. The impact was deafening. Metal screamed, glass shattered, and in an instant, the chase was over. Within minutes, police would realise that this crash was the end of a story that had begun hours earlier, inside a quiet terraced house in Beverley. By the way, this is Dark Case, and you can call me Jack. I bring you rare and unseen true crime cases, as well as other things that you may later regret knowing, with multiple uploads every single week. In fact, right now I'm uploading Monday to Friday. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, then make sure you join the Dark Case family now by hitting subscribe and turning all notifications on. And now for today's silly little question: what one food would you banish from existence if you had the chance? Let me know down in the comments. All of your support over on Patreon, as well as right here via channel memberships on YouTube, are so appreciated, and I really can't thank you all enough. However, thank you. But now, on with the video. It started just after 6 AM on Monday, July the 25th, 2022. Humberside police officers spotted a Volkswagen Polo travelling on the B1230 between Seaton and Hornsey. Moments earlier, they'd been told that the driver might be connected to a serious incident in Beverley. When they tried to stop the car, it did not slow down. In fact, it accelerated, and what followed was a short but dangerous pursuit. The Polo weaved across lanes, hitting speeds of up to 84 miles per hour. Officers later said that they saw it hugging corners on the wrong side of the road, forcing oncoming drivers into evasive maneuvers. One pursuing officer described the driver's behaviour as deliberate and not panicked. Another said it looked as though he was steering towards the van, the vehicle that he eventually struck. There were no brake lights seen. There was no attempt to avoid the collision. And when the dust settled, 46-year-old Ben Crosby was ended almost instantly in the driver's seat. The van driver was trapped in the wreckage. He had serious injuries to his spine, ribs and pelvis. It was only when police began piecing together who Crosby was and where he'd been earlier that morning that they understood the true scale of what had just happened. Ben Crosby was 46 years old, a sports massage therapist who had built a small but steady business called Alleviate Massage. He was known locally for his quiet, reserved manner, though some of his friends said he could be quite intense, driven, competitive, and set in his ways. Becci Rees-Hughes was almost 10 years younger, a mother of two. She was studying physics at Hull University. Her professors described her as bright, caring and passionate. Her friends called her the life and soul of the party, someone who could bring warmth to any room that she entered. The couple had met in 2015. At first, their relationship was steady, comfortable and even. They lived in Beverley, a quiet East Yorkshire market town, and outwardly they appeared settled. Becci juggled studies, work and motherhood. Ben focused on his business and maintaining the home. Those who knew them at the time saw no obvious cracks. There were smiles in photos. There were the normal routines. A family that, from the outside, looked quite unremarkable, and in that sense, they were safe. But beneath the surface, tensions were already taking root. The kind of tension that would only reveal itself slowly, in small, private moments. Becci's days were full. At the university, she thrived. She was among the top performers in her class, and she also volunteered on outreach projects in order to encourage more young women into physics. At home, she balanced raising her boys with her coursework and her part-time jobs. Friends said that she was ambitious and always chasing new experiences. That drive sometimes pulled her in directions that Ben didn't share. He was more content to stay in and to keep a tight routine. She wanted to explore, to meet new people, and to take on extra shifts at a pub where the atmosphere was lively and unpredictable. In May 2022, She took a job at the King's Head pub in Beverley town centre. It was a busy social environment, a strong contrast to her quiet study hours and her domestic responsibilities. Ben would sometimes visit, have a drink, and then wait for her to finish her shift. Other nights he stayed home. Those who saw them together in this period still thought of them as a couple planning for their future. They spoke about getting married, about finding the right venue. On Ben's birthday, June the 30th in 2022, he proposed in Hornsey. Becci said yes, and to outsiders it looked like a new chapter was beginning. But in private, not everything was as harmonious as it seemed. The King's Head pub was often packed out with regulars and tourists. It was also where Becci began forming new friendships, connections outside of the world that she shared with Ben. Colleagues recalled that she enjoyed the energy of the place. She was quick to laugh, often staying to chat after her shift ended. And it was there that she met one of the chefs, a man that she grew closer to as the weeks went on. To those around her, there were signs, small but telling, that things between Becci and Ben might not be as solid as they'd once seemed. One co-worker said that Becci often sought excuses to remain at work longer, describing it as where she could have more fun. A neighbour later remembered seeing them in the street one day, with Ben gripping Becci's upper arm while speaking sharply, and not in a loving way. Ben also began to notice changes too. Becci's phone was always nearby. She was seen laughing at private messages. Something in her attention had shifted and he could feel it. By mid-July, tension had now replaced the easy rhythm that they'd once had. It didn't just stay as a suspicion for long. Ben confronted Becci, and she admitted to having an affair with the chef from work. However, she assured him that it was over. They agreed to stay together, even get engaged, as if sealing a new promise to each other. But in reality, the contact with her lover actually continued. On July the 24th, Becci sent him 8 text messages, one of which read, "I can't get over you. I'm trying, but I can't." Her lover didn't believe her assurances that things with Ben were fine. Becci had previously told him that she wanted to be single, that she was tired of Ben's jealousy, but later said that she would stay together for the sake of their children. Around this time, the chef received anonymous text messages, and they were warning him to stay away. He never found out who sent them, although it's obvious. Ben's ex-partner also noticed that something was off. She later told an inquest that he seemed unusually quiet, withdrawn, and was acting totally out of character. Earlier in July, he called her to say that Becci had confessed to the affair, but also claimed that she'd ended it. But he didn't sound convinced. Underneath it all, resentment and mistrust were building. The kind that doesn't just dissipate. It simmers, building pressure until it finally finds an outlet. Looking back, several people recalled moments that felt uneasy, though at the time they didn't see where all of this was leading. A colleague at the King's Head pub remembered spotting Ben and Becci outside one afternoon. Ben was raising his voice and grabbing her by the arm. Others noticed smaller signs too. Ben now turned up more often at her workplace. Becci was growing more reluctant to head home after her shifts, continuing to linger with co-workers instead. One neighbour recalled a fleeting moment on the street where Becci greeted someone warmly, only for her expression to harden as she noticed Ben was watching her. It was subtle but enough to suggest an underlying tension. Friends described Becci as independent and outgoing, but also as someone who was drawn into trying to keep the peace, even if it meant downplaying her own unhappiness. To them, it was clear that she was trying to navigate a difficult situation whilst trying to avoid confrontation, but whatever balance she was trying to hold on to was slipping away. Sunday, July the 24th, 2022, began much like any other day. Becci worked an evening shift at the Fire Pit pub and restaurant, a different venue from the King's Head, but still in the heart of town. On that night, Ben came in. He stayed after her shift ended at 9 p.m, and the two of them were seen having drinks together before leaving for their Salmon Road home. At around 1:45 a.m, CCTV captured them leaving the house once again. Where they went and why, it isn't fully clear, but it's believed that they returned home later that night. What happened inside that house over the next few hours would not be witnessed by anyone outside of its walls, but by dawn, it was all over, and at 6 a.m, Ben picked up his phone and called the only people that he could think of, his parents. They would later tell an inquest that he sounded distressed. His voice was flat but urgent, panicked but controlled. "I've messed up really bad. I've killed her." They drove straight to Salmon Road. When they arrived, Ben was outside in the car. He was pale and shaking. He followed them into the house. Inside the front room, Becci was on the sofa. There was no movement, no response. The warm, bright presence their family knew was now gone forever. Ben's father told him that he was calling the police. Ben said, "I'm gone," and moved for the back door. His mother ran after him. He turned back. He gave them both a final hug. He said that he was sorry, and then at 5:54 a.m, his father dialed 999. He told the operator exactly what his son had said. He also voiced a fear that felt like certainty, what Ben could do to himself. Within minutes, patrol cars were circulating. A sighting came through on the B1230 between Seaton and Hornsey. It was the Volkswagen Polo with Ben at the wheel. While officers converged on the roads, detectives secured the house, and what they found confirmed the worst. Becci had suffered multiple sharp strikes. There was also signs of significant blunt force trauma. The early view was that her time on this earth had been brought to an end in a domestic targeted attack. Senior investigating officer DCI Alan Curtis later said that there were no other suspects. This was an isolated incident, adding that there was no wider risk to the public. Outside, the blue lights moved farther from Beverley and closer to the coast. The chase was already underway. The collision with the van near Hornsey ended the pursuit, but it did not end the damage. An electrician driving the Ford Transit van survived, but his injuries were described as serious and potentially life-changing. He had a wedding planned for the following month, but it would not go ahead. Back in Beverley, word spread fast. Friends and colleagues began posting tributes for Becci. A co-worker called her a lovely girl. On campus, her professor remembered a student who'd achieved some of the highest marks in her year. They described her as passionate in her studies, but also equally passionate when she spoke about her children. Police named Becci publicly. They confirmed that they were not looking for anyone else, and the force referred the pursuit to the Independent Office for Police Conduct. An investigation later closed with no action against officers. What happened on the road was all Ben's fault. At the inquest into Becci's ending, the medical findings were clear. Her time was ended by loss of vital fluids. Along with the sharp impacts, there were also blunt impacts to the head, and the coroner concluded that she had been unlawfully ended. During another inquest, it examined Ben's final half an hour. Jurors watched dashcam footage from pursuing units. The entire chase had been recorded, and it showed him taking a bend on the wrong side of the road at high speed. It also did not show any brake lights. A forensic collision investigator offered two possibilities: distraction or intent, and the jury, by majority, reached a verdict of accidental death. There is no sentence to read here, no courtroom to watch, no chance for Becci to speak for herself, but the record stands.
Yesterday morning, at around 6 a.m, a woman was found dead in one of these houses after police received reports of a concern for her safety. A man was reported to have fled the scene in a car, and a police chase ensued. Unfortunately, the man driving the car crashed at a site in Hornsey, which resulted in his death, but also an innocent van driver to incur life-changing injuries. The official police statement reads the following: a murder investigation is underway following the discovery of a woman's body at a property in Beverley yesterday in the early hours of Monday the 25th of July that is believed to be connected to an investigation into a road traffic collision near Hornsey later that same morning. Senior Investigating Officer, Detective Chief Inspector Alan Curtis said, Whilst we are in the early stages of our inquiries, I can reassure the public that this is an isolated incident and there is no ongoing or wider risk to the public. Officers discovered the woman's body at a house on Salmon Road in Beverley after receiving reports of a concern for her safety. As part of our inquiries, a man was reported to have left the address in Beverley in a Volkswagen Polo at around 6 a.m. The car was later seen by police officers on the A1035 between Seaton and Hornsey, and a short police pursuit ensued. The Polo was then in a collision with another vehicle, a Ford Transit van, at around 6:30 a.m. The driver of the Polo was pronounced dead at the scene. The man driving the Ford Transit van was taken to hospital with serious and potentially life-changing injuries and remains in hospital at this time. As there was a police pursuit, the incident has been referred to the Independent Office for Police Conduct to be independently reviewed. The woman's family have been informed of her death and the investigation into her murder and are being provided support by specially trained officers. The man's family have also been informed of his death and specially trained officers are in contact with them and offering support. Specialist roads policing officers are in contact with the driver of the Ford Transit and their family to offer support and updates in regards to the investigation. Police have asked that if anyone wants to get in touch to aid the investigation, even anonymously, if they just call 101 and quote log 66 of the 25th of July 2022, they can give some information that way. This is the house over here where a police cordon is still in place.
A mother and student, described by those who knew her as bright, fun, caring and kind, in a relationship that looked settled from the outside, but was falling apart at the seams. Be careful out there, and I'll see you soon.